by the Omnisaya will. Clearance Epsilon to Alpha required to access the file. Failure to provide clearance shall mean severe punishment. Data card detected. Analyzing. Blessing of the Omnisaya and the Golden Throne upon you. Servant of the Holy Inquisition recognized. Clearance accepted. Would you like to access this file? File name. First Damocles Conclave. Meeting Epsilon Alpha 0001. File opened. Information. Name. First Damocles Conclave. Date 3.548.735.M41. Location. Fortress Inquisitoris Lucrena Extremis. System. Agrellan. Subsector. Umbran. Hollows. Sector. Damocles. Segmentum. Ultima. Members of the Conclave. Valentin du Bastal, Lord Inquisitor, Ordo Xenos, Puritan, present. Maria Brangan, Inquisitor, Ordo Xenos, Puritan, present. Baltic Otfar, Inquisitor, Ordo Xenos, Radical, present. Antarine Arain, Inquisitor, Ordo Hereticus, Puritan, present. Fadius Shouk, Inquisitor, Ordo Hereticus, Puritan, present. Gallius Scalier, Ordo Hereticus, Puritan, absent. Recording of the meeting available. Would you like to play the recording? Machine Spirit, awaken and do thy duty. Playing the recording.
Stone walls surrounded them on all sides. There were no windows, no electric lights. Candles were placed in seemingly random places, revealing shapes carved into the stone. Figures, names, prayers, oaths, and runes of protection. A singular golden letter hung above a table standing in the middle of the room, the symbol of the Holy Ordos. 4 figures sat at the round table. 2 more chairs were empty. The inactive holographic display was interconnected with the heart of a table. Unmoving servitor fused into the blessed machine. The people at the table were silent, but alert. Some wore simple robes. Some were wearing blessed power armor decorated with prayer seals and markings of faith. Each and every one of them were agents of the God's Emperor, Holy Inquisition, people who could save entire worlds or ensure their doom with but a word. 2 of them were in a quiet staring contest. The remaining 2 seemed to simply wait, and nothing else, ignoring the silently growing tension. The doors opened, and 1 more person strode right in. All turned to regard him. Some observed him in silence, some gave respectful nods. Yet the silent tension was palpable. They already knew that something went wrong. Their suspicions were confirmed as a tall man dressed in simple dark robes with silver thread didn't sit down. but remained standing in front of the biggest and most decorated of all chairs. He was old, yet wore a face of far younger man. He had short silver-brown hair and well-groomed beard. His robes were luxurious, yet plain, utilitarian in their simplicity and deceptive enough that few noticed the hidden flexible armor hidden under it. He looked between them, his golden eyes stopping at the empty seat, before he released a sigh. Gaius is dead. Lord Inquisitor Valentin du Bastal announced. 2 inquisitors remained silent. One sighed with a note of sadness, and one murmured a curse under her breath. A man covered in black robes looked up at Bastal, his crow-black hair and beard contaminated with silver, his green eyes full of focus. "How?" Baltic Otvar asked in quiet whisper. He attempted to lead loyalist elements on Mahilus Prime in an act of rebellion against traitorous governor and his xenos allies, was Lord Inquisitor's simple answer. He failed. A female Inquisitor, covered in crimson power armor of Sister of Battle, rose to her feet, ceasing her cursing. Gaius was hot-headed, but not an idiot, Antarine Arain said with fire in her voice and hidden pain in her eyes. He wouldn't attempt to bring back a world into the Emperor's light if he wasn't sure he had a clear chance. She insisted. Remaining Inquisitors nodded their agreement, and Lord Inquisitor sighed once more. He miscalculated, Bastal answered. The xenos had a hidden force on the planet, air and ground forces, far more than expected. The forces he led lacked enough anti-air weaponry to counter sudden strike from above. They were bombed into oblivion right after they left the city he managed to liberate from the traitors. He survived and managed to retreat, but was cut down by traitor units supported by Xeno ground forces. Evacuation was impossible, with traitors having full air supremacy. His ship escaped the system when Xeno fleet appeared on their sensors. Only one of his interrogators survived. He brought those news to me 2 days ago. Lord Inquisitor answered. I decided to take him under my wing. He shall finish his training and hopefully take the place of his master in a few years. Or a decade. There was a long moment of silence. A bald man wearing impressive power armor wrapped his chin in contemplation. The blessed Aquila was tattooed on his bald head in golden ink. His face one of deep scars and concentration. His pair of purple eyes were full of focus and piety, and when he spoke, each syllable was one of might so great it echoed like a song from stone walls. So, the Xenos feel safe enough to put a garrison on rebellious worlds within Imperial space? Thaddeus Shock asked with a raised eyebrow. Bold and unexpected. Lord Inquisitor nodded, agreeing with the sentiment. It was a very small force, something closely resembling a company of Imperial Guard, maybe few of such units. They were few in number, but very well trained. Their exact numbers aren't clear. The interrogator had to retreat before he could examine enemy forces. With his mentor dead and xenos closing in, it was the only reasonable action. Was Bastal's answer. Otvar punched the table, his face contorted in a grimace of fury and irritation. Fool. Baltic shook his head, getting everyone's attention. Vainglorious, hot-headed fool! Antarine Arain of Ordo Hereticus stood up, her crimson power plate growling alongside the rage of her owner. You dare! She shouted, with the fire of rage blazing in her eyes. He did what the Emperor demands of us. He fought against the accursed xenos who dare to challenge his divine rule. Grisia Subsector has already fallen into their hands before we could do anything to stop it. Titania Gateway is falling as we speak. It was his duty to resist. Otvar looked back, his eyes filled with cold contempt. We all agreed to gather our resources, influence, and power to challenge this new threat. Now our conclave is missing one member. His resources, connections, and influence gone with him. He slowly stood up, silver strains in his beard shining in the candlelight. We agreed to meet here, to plan out our next move, not to jump into the unknown. Not only that, his rash actions most likely warned the enemy. This could mean that we just lost the advantage of surprise. I will not spare criticism to the dead when their actions could doom our future plans. Arain didn't back down. Quite the opposite. She leaned in, the hilt of a power sword clear for everyone to see. Most mortals would think her superior to a man covered in nothing but black robes. Those more perceptive would notice a set of most particular rings on Otvar's fingers. Jokero made wonders, each capable of unleashing enough power to melt a tank. You speak of cowardice. Arain spat, her plate growling. But what else should I expect from a radical who keeps xenos as pets, despite his oath to bring an end to their menace? Otvar seemed unmoved by the accusations. He heard it all more times than he cared to count. I speak of caution. Gallius threw himself at the enemy and lost his life for it, achieving nothing. He answered, We are Inquisitors, not Black Templars. We don't throw ourselves at the problem with abandon. We use proper tools to cut the infection from the Emperor's domain. He made a point of looking down at his rings. Don't criticize me for using the most efficient tools for the task. Arain tried to say something when Thaddeus placed a hand on her, his own power armor being noticeably silent as he did so. She looked down at his still sitting form as he smiled up at her. Sister, don't let your rightful rage and sorrow blind you. Division between us gives strength to the enemy. If we don't work as one, we will never avenge our brother, nor will we bring justice to the traitors and doom to the xenos filth. His voice was one of calm sea, one before the storm. Don't seek the blood of our brother, for even though he walks a different path, his faith is true. This is not the place to judge one of our own, not here, not now. Lord Inquisitor gave him a nod of approval as he spoke as well. Indeed, we must work together. He looked at everyone gathered. I am fully aware that Otvar uses tools and strategies which some of you disdain. However, he is here on my request, and I will not tolerate further slights to his honor nor questioning of his loyalty, for I have tested him many times, and he is yet to fail me even once. His eyes focused on Arain. Do I make myself clear? There was a clear warning in those words. The Inquisitor of Ordo Hereticus stiffened for a moment, as if only now realizing the weight of her own words. She closed her eyes and let out a quiet breath. She looked at Bastal and bowed. Of course, Lord Inquisitor, please forgive me. Loss of a friend blinded me for a moment. She spoke in a regretful tone. To everyone's surprise, Otvar raised from his seat as well. No, don't ask for forgiveness. It is I who must apologize. He bowed to Arain. I knew he was your friend, yet I disrespected his memory. My words were unnecessarily cruel and ignorant of your own pain. I ask for your forgiveness. The room was silent for a few long moments. The former Sister of Battle looked at Otvar, clearly conflicted by his words. Finally, she let out a breath, remembering the true purpose of this meeting. Otvar was a radical, but he was far from the most extreme examples known to her. He had expertise she lacked. They had a need of him, especially now. All is forgiven between us, brother, she whispered. Let us focus on the true enemy of mankind, not seek one among allies. This seemed to satisfy the Lord Inquisitor, as he smiled and gestured for both of them to sit down. As they did, the last member of the Conclave, one that remained silent until now, moved in her seat. Maria Brangan was a bizarre sight, one of beauty and horror, for she embraced ideas of a machine cult, her face one of unnatural and uncanny perfection. Grown muscles and hidden implants, giving her face of a woman that was at least 200 years younger. This perfect face was contrasted with 4 mechanical arms covered in pure black plates and dozens of cybernetic augmentations. Her crimson robe could be mistaken for one of the Omnissiah chosen, yet she was no tech priest, at least not officially. Murder of Inquisitor must not go unanswered. Mahilus Prime will have to be purged, she said in cold yet sweet tone, synthesized in such a way that only the most perceptive would notice its cybernetic origins. But even so, this world is just one of many. 15 worlds that remain of Grisha subsector already pledged themselves to the xenos. As of Titania Gateway subsector, 8 worlds are in open rebellion against the Emperor. Another 12 are confirmed to ally with xenos. Another 10 are under investigation by our agents. She said, leaning on the pair of her lower arms, when the upper pair held some kind of datapad. Almost 2 subsectors gone right after we re-established contact with them. The first confirmed contact with those xenos comes from around a decade ago, but it's clear they were influencing both regions for far longer. They captured almost 40 worlds with close to no resistance, at least until Gallius Scalia's valiant attempt. If my calculations are correct, if this trend continues, those xenos will secure the remaining imperial worlds of Damocles sector within next 188 years. She shook her head, clearly irritated. Such future is less than optimal. Damocles sector belongs to the Emperor and the Imperium. It cannot be allowed to fall. We must counter their expansion, and we must do it fast. That is exactly why we agreed to form this conclave. Lord Inquisitor Valentin Dubastal agreed, finally sitting down. We all recognize the threat of those xenos. The spread of their influence must be stopped, and they cannot be allowed to grow in power. Let us examine the present situation. With unseen command, Holovid projector awoke, and the room was lit with three-dimensional display of a region of interest. Rebellious worlds marked in orange, while those with xenos influence marked with yellow. The region from which xenos came marked in crimson red. At this moment, we know of 35 worlds that decided to abandon the Imperium and join the Xenos Empire. He announced, image changing to display unknown region of space from which Xenos arrived. As you well know, Damocles sector has been covered in a massive warp storm for around 6 millennia. No chaos forces ever exited from it. Few orc wargs plunged into it and their fleets were consumed by it. By all accounts, we were sure that everything in this region of space is either dead or corrupted. Then, few decades ago, the warp storm started to break apart. And what do our agents found? A Xeno Empire. Image changed to display strange, smooth, white buildings. Thanks to our research, we found out that the rulers of this empire are known as the Tau. Henceforth, the foe will be designated as the Tau Empire. Objections? None were raised, and so he continued. From what we have gathered, the Tau are a humanoid species of Xenos that spread a corruption philosophy of the greater good. Their idea that all species should work in the name of betterment of all. He almost scoffed. But from what we have gathered, it's quite clear that what they really mean is good of the Tau and their ruling caste. They managed to spread this ideology to an unknown number of xenos species that either joined their empire willingly or were subjugated by them. He looked around to be sure that everyone was following his explanation. None raised questions, so he continued. There are many threatening things about this empire. Firstly, their ability to pressure other species to join their cause, including humans. Secondly, they possess a significant military and naval force that could be a threat to neighboring sectors. Thirdly, and most concerning of all, they use an abundant amount of abominable intelligence. That caught everyone's attention. Clearly, that information didn't reach them yet. Lord Inquisitor made a small gesture, signaling that they could ask questions. The first one to speak was Arain. How did they manage to corrupt loyal servants of the Emperor? She asked in a frustrated tone. Do they use mind control? Psychic power? Lord Bastal looked at Otfar, who stood up to address the question. The image changed to show a corpse of blue-grey xeno. We aren't sure. Otfar answered with a sigh of resignation. We didn't manage to capture any of them alive yet. Only corpses for dissection. They do have organs to spread pheromones, but we couldn't confirm if they have any effect on humans. No recognizable DNA structure of a psyker, but that means nothing when we speak of xenos. He gestured at the image. We did gather that individual castes of the Tau have some differences between them, but overall there isn't really anything special about them. They are psychically weaker than standard humans, and their bodies are fragile. He rubbed his chin. It's a wonder that they managed to create an empire at all. His answer was clearly unsatisfying, but that was the only answer they had at the time. Maybe we are looking in the wrong direction, Maria said with a tilt of her head. Maybe the Tau are only figureheads, and something else holds true power. What type of xenos serve the Tau? Otfar shrugged, clearly irritated that he didn't have the answer they wanted. Almost all of them are unknown. Not that our agents didn't see them, but that they couldn't be identified, captured, or studied. The Empire has most likely more than 24 species within it, both xenos, mutants, and subhumans. In many cases, it's impossible to spot a difference. Of all xeno species, there is only one that was successfully identified so far, Otfar announced. Image changed to depict a tall reptilian xeno wearing casual clothes and eating at some kind of nutrition bar. Calm Thaddeus stood up, his eyes blazing with righteous fire, as he recognized the creature. Tarelian, he spat with disgust. Arain looked at him in surprise. They were both of Ordo Hereticus after all. It was rare for their order to be knowledgeable about different xenos. Seeing her surprise, Thaddeus elaborated. They are known to work as mercenaries of the Drukhari raiders and servants of the arch-enemy. I faced a band of those beasts not long ago in Crus's sector. They accompanied a force of Alpha Legion in strikes against local agri-worlds. He turned his attention to a display image. This one, however, is different. No sign of chaos corruption. No mutation that I can notice. You are correct, Lord Bastal said with conviction. Everything we know about the Tau points to their ignorance of chaos and warp in general. They don't seem to be in any way affected by the touch of ruinous powers, he stated. That's one of the reasons why our friends from Ordo Malleus showed no interest in joining our conclave. As of now, we have no proof that the Tau Empire is influenced by the arch-enemy. A blessing within a curse, Thaddeus whispered. Is it, colleague? Otvar asked with a raised eyebrow. Forces of chaos by nature are divided. It is rare to find a force of corrupted traitors with true cohesion. Those xenos seem intelligent and cohesive. They are well organized and efficient. And I mean to a frightening degree. In fact, I fear that they don't use neither mind control abilities nor psychic power to turn worlds against the Emperor's light. I fear they are capable of doing so with words alone. At that, Arain stood up with a clatter of her chair falling to the ground. Preposterous! Servants of the Emperor can't be swayed by simple words of a xenos filth, she contested. The devoted souls of the Imperium can't be swayed in such simple manner. Spiritual corruption or influence of psychic tyrants is needed to make humans turn their backs on the Emperor. Otvar raised his hand in a calming gesture, wanting to finish his thought. Maybe on the core worlds of a sector, those that are close to the heart of imperial authority. Baltic agreed. But we are speaking about worlds that were cut from the Imperium for almost 6 millennia. The last time we had contact with the Imperium was during the Reign of Blood. That made ex-sister of Battle grimace. They were already far from the Emperor's light, their faith twisted by time and local traditions. The xenos just finished the job, he explained in a calm tone. We already known about humans within Tau Empire who seem to be native to it. Tau most likely managed to find some lost tribes of humanity and indoctrinated them into their philosophy. With that, they gained experience how to interact with humans and ability to use them as agents for their goals. A citizen of the Imperium will refuse the words of a xeno, but what of a human that carries their master's corruption through words? There is the possibility that they are far more subtle than we initially thought. A murmur of quiet deliberation was Otvar's answer. Forgive me, colleague, but that seems like a bit of a stretch, Thaddeus said in an apologetic tone as Arain picked up her chair. For an imperial world to change size without spiritual corruption is rare. Few examples we do know of are connected to Drukhari raids that placed weak and faithless as rulers of a planet, making dark pacts so they could enslave people freely without worry. And even in those cases, they firstly had to kill those of strong faith. Those Tau, on the other hand, don't seem to use such tactics, he contested. The same people who gave thanks to the Golden Throne suddenly abandoning their faith and reason? Unlikely. It must be some kind of mind control, There is no other answer. Agreed. Arain spoke with clarity in her tone. We have a well of knowledge in regard of xenos tactics and their ways of corrupting the soul of humankind. None speak of such mundane thing as simply talking to loyal servants of the Emperor and turning them away from his light. Deceptions of great magnitude, mind control, psychic might, dark powers and abominable technology are their tools. This is what we need to find and eliminate to ensure safety of the Emperor's domain. I support Otvar's explanation. Mari spoke, breaking the trend. With respect, colleagues, you specialize with heretics, most of whom turn to the dark powers and occult. But I studied xenos. Their ways are different from ours, and their abilities reinforce Emperor's mission to wipe them out. While physically weak, those Tau might have amazing oratory abilities that can twist minds and hearts of Imperial servants. I also agree that millennia of isolation had to weaken local population and left it open for such perversive influence. Otvar sighed and looked around at his colleagues. Be it word alone, psychic might, or some kind of mind control, those Tau and their empire is unknown to us. We cannot stumble in the dark. We must study them before we act. If we discover their strengths and weaknesses, we'll be able to bring their end and more effectively counter their influence. Once again, a murmur of disagreement was his answer. While I appreciate your caution, Otvar, Maria Brandgan spoke in respectful tone. We can't give those xenos time to comprehend the might of the Imperium, nor to spread their influence any further. They don't seem to understand the true extent of Emperor's domain, nor our capacity for war. If we wait, they will most likely raise defenses and start working with our enemies to weaken us, before they themselves strike at the Imperium. There are many threats in this region of space. If their diplomats reach them and convince them to join their empire, there is a threat that they will unite enough of them to spread disorder in neighboring sectors. Agreed. We need to strike back and strike hard, and at the very heart of this new enemy. Lord Inquisitor stated, standing up. We need to call a crusade against those xenos, fall upon them like an eagle on unexpected prey, and bring them low. 3 voices sounded their agreement, when Baltic Otvar shook his head with a sour grimace on his face. He stood up, certain he had to voice his disagreement, even if it would be seen as insult by the Lord Inquisitor, his mentor and friend. My lord, with all due respect, we don't even know the full extent of the enemy's strength. Some reports speak that they have as many as 600 worlds. He said with clear distress. That's not something a small crusade can deal with. Arain scoffed and even laughed at the absurdity of the statement. Come on, brother. Don't tell me you believe those lies. Otvar shot her a cold stare. I didn't say I believe them. But even if this number is false, even if they have 1/10 of what they claim to have, 60 worlds are nothing to laugh at. We need time to gather the proper amount of forces to face against this new threat, and if we do, we can't send them in blind to be slaughtered. He looked around, seeing that he got everyone's attention. My colleagues, my siblings, please, in the name of the Emperor, give me time. I agree that something has to be done. I will put my weight and support behind this crusade. But we cannot strike at the unknown without at least knowing where to strike. Now everyone was listening. We have no idea how big this Tau Empire is, nor how many forces they can move against us, how quickly they can mobilize, or what strange weapons or powers they wield. If we move without caution, the Crusade will walk to their own doom. Just like our missing colleague. All eyes turned towards the empty seat. The missing presence of a loud zealot was palpable, and it clearly calmed everyone down. Thaddeus, Maria, and even Lord du Bastal nodded their agreement. Antarin Arain Sign, clearly displeased, but not foolish enough to challenge Baltic on this point. "What do you propose?" she asked. Otvar released a breath before he spoke again. "Let me investigate those xenos, while you gather proper Imperial forces. And I do mean proper. Guard and Navy won't be enough. We need Astartes, Sororitas, Skitari, Knights, possibly even Titans," he said sternly. "We need to make sure those forces will remain committed to our cause. If we are to bring the end to this Tau Empire, we must be sure that one strike, one crusade, one great campaign will end them." Everyone nodded their agreement. The idea of one crusade clearly sounded good to them. "How much time do you need?" Lord Inquisitor asked. "A decade would be optimal. 10 years of research and access to Deathwatch strike teams to secure information and live specimens for research." He answered without a pause. He already thought about it beforehand. "It will give us time to deploy our agents to ex-Imperial worlds, create loyalist resistance movements, and maybe even rebellions, giving our crusade advantage in initial clashes. It's more than enough time for you to gather a proper Imperial force for a crusade." Lord du Bastal sighed and shook his head. Others seemed to be of the same mind. "Unacceptable." Maria Brangan shook her head in disagreement. "We cannot give them a decade. They will notice either our research or our preparations. Additionally, with our influence, we will be able to force things to move far quicker than usually." She added, raising her personal inquisitorial rosette. "We will have to step carefully for our actions to not be seen as abuse of our authority. But if the entire Conclave speaks with one voice, if members of two orders will call for a crusade, I doubt that there will be many voices to oppose us. We can petition High Lords of Terra themselves through inquisitorial representative. Everyone nodded their heads, clearly already planning their future actions. Agreed. I have friends among the Ministorum, including Cardinal of Brimlock. Arain said with a smile. I will be able to convince him to call for a crusade. With his support, the call for crusade will spread, and more forces will gather under its banner. She thought for a moment. I can also call upon my sisters. Years have passed since my induction into the Inquisition, but they are still my sisters. I'm sure they will answer, and other orders will follow. I have friends among generals of the Imperial Guard and House Terran. I can call upon the might of Imperial Knights for the Crusade. With their support, we will be able to face any threat those Tau can master. Thaddeus stated, his voice now becoming one of incoming storm. I will make sure that the wheels of Administratum turn at proper pace. I have contacts among local Forge worlds. I'm sure that information about xenos using abominable intelligence will be of utmost interest to them all. Maria smiled in the most uncanny way possible. Her artificial face, one of false perfection. This slight against Machine God should be enough to awaken entire Legio and secure equipment for the Crusade. The support of local Forge worlds should also give more weight to our petition to High Lords of Terra. And I can call few favors among the Astartes. Genesis chapter owns me a great deal. They will answer. Many others will follow suit. Lord Inquisitor said with confidence before turning to Otvar. You have 5 years to finish your investigation. After that, you will help us in final preparations of the Crusade. His tone left no room for arguing. We shall send word to our allies immediately and use the combined weight of our Conclave and those who will support us to secure an official call for a crusade from High Lords of Terra themselves. Baltic Otvar nodded his head. They already made their decision. He only hoped that even with inquisitorial influence, imperial bureaucracy will slow them down a bit, so he could have more time. I won't stand against you, my siblings. I shall use those 5 years to gather information for the sake of this crusade. He answered with a bow before looking up. How do we intend to name it? Lord Inquisitor smiled, clearly already having chosen a name. Let's give it a simple name. Damocles Gulf Crusade. For this is the region of space that shall be purged of xenos life. We shall gather our forces, cut through this Tau Empire's heart, and erase this threat from our galaxy. Ave Imperator. Ave Imperator was the answer of everyone else.
End of the recording. Closing file. Blessings of the Omnissiah be upon you servant of the Inquisition, thought of a day. Words without actions are the mark of the faithless.